Welcome to Travel Buddy, presented by Switchfly. In this podcast, we talk about all things travel, rewards, and loyalty. Let's get to it. James, Ian, welcome to another episode of the Travel Buddy podcast. Today, we are talking about automation. So, we've got some notes. We've been talking about automation. But first, for our listeners, I want to talk about why does this matter? But also, give me a sense of what does automation mean? Because I feel like there's so many companies, there's so many new technologies coming out. What do you mean by automation? Is that AI? Is that conveyor belts moving luggage around? And then, of course, yeah, why this matters. So give me a little bit of the lay of the land of automation and some things around that. Help our
Sure.
listeners connect the dots.
So yeah, that's a really good point. Automation is really such a broad term, right? And you hit the nail on the head. It could be a car manufacturer just moving parts down the assembly line, moving your bag through security at the airport. Those are all examples of automation. Why it's been such a relevant topic over the last couple of years is really the rise of machine learning and artificial intelligence. In the early 1900s, we see the big spike in automation as far as getting the assembly line started forward. It steadily improves throughout the 20th century. Then with computing and the internet, we see another big spike just because of the amount of data that can be processed was so much more than previous, as well as the interconnectivity between various partners. And really, we've been seeing the next big spike, right? Especially with machine learning, but also with things like generative AI and some other artificial intelligence models and things. So a lot of what we're going to talk about is going to be very ML AI focused, but it's not the whole picture, but it is a big part of today's picture in automation. Some just
Ian,
good.
why now?
Why now? This is all still extremely new in some areas, right? Like you think of 2023, just seeing that explosion of people going on ChatGPT for the first time to even, less than a year later, we're seeing so many companies incorporating AI into their business model. Switchfly, for example, just one. We work on large data processing to do personalization for users on the platform. You're seeing that kind of across the board in a lot of different industries. Everyone is getting this new tool and being able to plug it into their current process to just make it that much better. So that's definitely why now. We saw the explosion last year of this new tech. And I think this year and in the next couple of years, we'll see it really refined into how does it help on an individual basis across the board. I want to bring it back to like, why is automation important? Just generally leaving out the AI and ML stuff. I'm doing some research for the podcast, found some interesting statistics in the airline industry that in the United States, there are 45,000 daily flights, 2.9 million passengers, and it equates to an average about at any one time, there's about 5,400 aircraft in the air over the United States at any moment in time. All of that is controlled through 520 air traffic control towers. There's no way 520 air traffic control towers can control 45,000 daily flights without having a lot of their processes automated. Now you start to incorporate some of this new technology, we'll be able to see just like those drastic efficiencies keep getting better and better, right? the whole point of automation is to increase efficiency and reduce human error, and I equate increase efficiency with reducing cost. Uh, so, but that's how you can really control that much traffic with such a small group. And like I said earlier, we're on the cusp of just being able to do that much more with machine learning and AI. A lot of, and forgive me, a lot of the examples I have are from the airline industry, but really you could take it across the board from hotels, car rentals, uh, activity, amusement parks, all these using a lot of these new tools to help facilitate the processes. But just some of the examples in airline, things like pilot and crew scheduling last Christmas. So 2022 Christmas, we saw huge chaos with Southwest when their antiquated system goes down and now they have to reschedule flights for thousands of air crews. And it just became a whole mess. Things like updating those older systems with a lot of the new tools will be able to help really facilitate that much quicker. Things like route planning, airport security. We talked about baggage handling earlier. All of these tools that we have and we've automated it to a certain extent in the past are now just going to get a boost in the arm. And that's all sort of supply side of travel. On the demand side, in the booking process, historically, we've used automation for data input, payment processing, packaging, travel itineraries together. But you're going to see over the next couple of years, refinement in now we've had that process before, but now we're going to personalize that process to you, right? We're going to take these extremely large data sets, use them as models, and based on your behavior, interacting with the website, the searches you input into a website, your travel history, things like that, is going to go into these models and become much more personalized to you. So think of it as before pre, say 22 internet is here's the encyclopedia, but now AI is here's the encyclopedia and here's the page you're looking for in it. It'll just make it so much easier for the consumer side of things to be able to find what they're looking for and have a more customized approach to their booking and travel process than ever before. And a lot of that is due to the automation that's being done on the back end of things that you don't really see. I'm not sure if that totally makes sense.
Can you talk about a practical, for instance, of what a traveler would see on this?
That's-
Obviously, flights are super complicated. Just getting through security seems hard these days,
Sure.
at least in a reasonable time. But what does that look like for me, a traveler?
Exactly. So one area I think that there's a lot of interesting data for kind of crossing over from that supply to demand side that's very applicable to both is demand planning, right? Things like when the good time for you to book a hotel, or how far out should you be booking this flight or this travel? That helps basically across the board, right? It helps the supplier know, okay, these are how we want to do rate adjustments. These are when we need to have extra staff on hand, extra equipment, everything like that. But also on the demand side, me as a traveler, I'm going to get notifications from my favorite travel app. I'm going to get the certain emails from the supplier of, hey, here's a great time for you to be booking this travel. We can offer really great deals because the modeling we've done for our demand planning shows these kind of spikes and ebbs and flows of travel. So me as a traveler can really take advantage of a lot of that increase data processing to make some better decisions about when and where and how I want to travel. It also the how I want to travel is the point I want to touch on because how many times have you been trying to book a trip? If you're like me, I am equidistant between about 3 major airports. So I'm always doing 3 searches, right? Which airport is going to give me the best deal? Uh, what's the best time? All that stuff. It can be pretty labor intensive, right? With a lot of the newer travel tools coming out, you can start to modify that towards this person. Okay, you've flown out of St. Louis X number of times and Memphis X number of times. So we're going to show you if you fly out of here on this day, it's cheaper. But if you go over here on this day, it's cheaper, and make it a lot more personalized for the actual traveler. Sorry, James, one last thing before you dive back into another area. You're going to see a lot of change on the demand side. Are things like guest apps. I don't know if you guys have run into this a whole lot, but a lot of places are going to start offering or having their own app as a sort of quote unquote virtual concierge. If I'm going to a hotel and I want to make reservations for the restaurant and the hotel, there'll be an app that I can do that through rather than calling the front desk and going to the restaurant or whatever. When a good example of this is a couple of years ago, I took my older son to Disneyland, and Disneyland has a app that, it shows you, okay, you're here, gives you a map. Here's where you can plan your route of travel through the park. Here's the wait times on this ride. Here's like a good spot near you to eat or use the restroom or whatever. You're going to start seeing that, I think, a lot more across the board, even with some of the smaller boutique stuff. You don't have to be Disneyland to have your own app, right? You can be mom and pop bed and breakfast almost. And with a lot of the new development tools, create your own app and build your own personalized customer experience pretty easily for people.
As somebody who just got back from a St. Regis, I had a butler. So I'm really excited about a virtual concierge. It was wonderful.
That's awesome. Hey, the bit tangential, another, especially in the hospitality side, we're seeing a lot more robotics, right? Over the last couple of years. And definitely that trend is ramping up in hotels. Certain hotels are starting to use more robotics for housekeeping and cleaning hallways and things like that, delivering room service to your room through robotics, things like that. You're gonna start seeing a lot more of that. All right,
I'm definitely going to keep an eye out for an industrial sized Roomba going down my next hotel hallway. But just being the selfish marketer that I am, a big thing is what's in it for me. So Ian, you just gave the perfect reason why someone should talk to Switchfly. But where's the AI sizzle? Where's the automation piece to all of that?
Good question. So really it's about empowering the user to be able to find the travel experiences they want much more fluidly, much more easily, and much more tailored to them. For one example, there's a feature in the Switchfly platform called similar hotels, right? If I'm going to Denver or Boston or whatever, and I'm looking at a specific hotel, this feature will look at the sort of personalization data the platform has gathered, and then show me offerings similar to not only what I'm looking at, but the types of hotels I've booked before, and that I'm likely to want to book again. It makes that booking process so much easier because I'm not having to just sort of like click on random hotel listing pages and seeing, does this fit? No, this, I have pets. I like to swim. It's going to start taking some of those preferences in and start upfronting hey, this place offers pet care. This place allows, or this has a swimming pool, whatever. It's going to tailor that stuff more to the user. Another thing we're working on that is going to be, I think, just the standard in the next several years to come that we're jumping ahead on is being able to have, for lack of a better word, a conversation with your booking platform. So I'm going to say, I'm going to Tokyo on a business trip. What are some cool neighborhoods to stay in? I'm a foodie. I like to take nature walks or whatever, and just have a much more casual input and start getting recommendations based on generative AI principles based on my inputs, right? So it's going to be a lot more give and take, right? And a lot more conversational than just me inputting data, scrolling through a ton of listings and having to refine it myself. The platform's going to help me refine my preferences too. And I think that's where you're going to see a lot of the major gains on the consumer side of things for the user. And then the automation, it's almost a bit of an iceberg. We see so much of the new tools on the user and consumer side for machine learning and AI. We see so many new tools and so many upgrades to the tools we use. But really, the under the water of the iceberg, the big part is really going to be on the back end industry side of things. We're going to have just so many more offerings. So many different hotels are going to be able to be pulled into those searches. So many different routes and travel itineraries are going to be able to be analyzed and refined. There's just going to be a lot more options to pull from as this kind of data collection gets bigger and bigger, right? We're right at the very tip of that wave coming in. And I don't know how many metaphors I've used in this example. This is, I think, about the fourth, but we're right there on the tip of the wave, getting ready to crash of like all personalization, but so much of that's on the back end. And that's what like Switchfly is here for, is really to wrangle the back end things and then give it in a nice, easy to use format that utilizes a lot of their same tools, but to make things easier and more personalized for the user.
I think that's a pretty good point to wrap up on. I'm going to steal one trick from Brandon's playbook here and turn the tables. Do you guys have an example or an experience of generative AI automation or something else that isn't a butler that y'all have seen in the wild that really stood out?
Is this only for travel?
We can open it up to a broader forum.
Okay. Ian, you go first. I got to think for a second.
I was really hoping you would go.
Mine is, we started pushing the 48-hour early check-in. I don't think in the last 3 or 4 stays I've even talked to the front desk unless my mobile key, there's some weird edge issue. That's really a game changer. It feels super weird the first time or two, where it's like, hey, I totally belong here and I have no clue how you can tell I'm a guest. But definitely, like, I was out in Texas on a business trip It'd been a long day, got to the hotel, just went straight to my room, and it was awesome. Even just that extra couple minutes, you don't have to like rustle out a card, rustle out your license. You just can be a person. And that seemed like a really simple, but high, like low cost, high impact, just
Yeah.
make stay so much easier.
I love that. If I could just go next on that, because I think what's so great about some of these tools is not this grand revolutionary thing, but these little moments that just make it so much easier. So this is a very simple one and a very specific one, but when I'm searching in my project management tool for something, it uses a lot of, I guess, AI information or something to pull up very related tasks. And 99 times out of 100, it is the exact thing that I need to reference. It's just so good. That, and then I do some voiceover work in videos, and sometimes the word is pronounced incorrectly, and I regenerate that word, and in my voice, it recreates the words to make it sound correct. So it's
I,
little things like that make my life so much better.
I'm not sure how I feel about AI me talking back to me. It is a
Dude, it's
what?
great, man.
Yeah.
You should try it. I've mimicked my voice, and it's crystal clear. It's
I
perfect.
think just to your point of like it being these very like specific little examples throughout your day and not necessarily this one major overall experience. Not too long ago, my son, who's really just to tech and engineering stuff, we're playing around and just inputting food that we had into the fridge into and having it like spit out recipes that you can make with the food you have. And it was pretty creative. It started to like also ask questions of like, oh, do you also have onion? Like, cause if you do, you can do this XYZ thing. And it was pretty cool. It was fun.
That's awesome. I love that.
Well, very
I need
cool.
that because I'm a terrible cook.
There's also an app you can use that'll just bring food based on your preferences to you. Anyway,
I should check that out. This is great. I'm so excited for so much of what you just described, even for, I'm not a travel expert, but for the travel industry to make their lives so much easier, as they're automating flight patterns or deals that are coming up, but just making the systems on their end easier. But then on the travelers' end, making their lives easier with their preferences and all that. It just sounds so, I'm like so excited to make, because the travel industry for a long time has been so tough, and that's a tough industry. So to have some of these really transformational technologies just making people's lives easier, even in the smallest ways, like you mentioned, James, I'm really excited about that. Thank you for informing me, informing our audience. But yeah, I'm excited.
Awesome. Thanks,
perfect. Thank you guys.
Thanks.
Talk to you soon.
Thanks for being here.